Okay, thank
now.
you. I haven't got a red line round yet. Does that mean I can go? Yeah, thank you. Well, good evening and welcome everybody, councillors, any press or public who may have joined us for the Town Council's first virtual meeting, which is an extraordinary meeting of the Town Council's Policy and Finance Committee, specifically to look at proposals for improvements to the town centre public realm. That's the area from the station through to the end of Beach Road, and encompassing a little bit of East Street and the two little streets running off at Duke Street and Clifton Road. The Town Council is using the Microsoft Office Live Events platform to hold this meeting and has updated its standing orders to allow this to happen using electronic means. This meeting is being streamed live and is available to view on our website. This is our first meeting under the new regulations, allowing local authorities to meet formally using remote technology to avoid convening public meetings during the period of this pandemic. This is a very new experience for the Town Council, and we're no different from our colleagues at other local authorities in that we're reliant on the uninterrupted availability of the technology throughout the proceedings to make it work. So please do bear with us if there are any glitches. I'll therefore begin by setting out how this meeting will be conducted. Full details can be found in the remote meetings protocol and procedure rules, which have been approved by the Council. I can't emphasise enough how important it is for everybody joining this meeting, whether they're viewing or participating, to switch all mobile devices to silent for the duration of the meeting. It's also important that those of you participating keep your microphones on mute using the toolbar on your screen when you're not speaking to reduce disruption and interference from background noise. At the start of the meeting, the Town Clerk will ensure that those members and officers required for this meeting are present by calling the register and asking each councillor and officer to confirm that they're present. Throughout the meeting, members of the committee should have the chat window open, as this will enable you to indicate that you wish to speak when you wish to speak. It is important that you can see this window, as this is the mechanism that will be used to monitor participation throughout the meeting by myself and the Town Clerk. They may prompt me if there's any questions or statements that are outstanding or that I've missed. When your name is called, you'll need to unmute your microphone using the toolbar on your screen and wait for the word live and the red line to appear around your screen, and then please ensure that you speak clearly. Most decisions will be made by the general assent of those present. However, if a vote is required, each councillor's name will be read out by the Town Clerk or me in alphabetical order, and you'll be asked to state whether you are for, against, or abstaining. If at any time the Town Council's technology fails and we need to adjourn the meeting for a short period, I will confirm this and ask that all members and officers remain online whilst the issue is resolved. I will then confirm that the meeting is resuming. We can only monitor our technology and cannot halt the meeting if a member of the press or public experiences technology issues with their devices. I will now formally begin the meeting and ask the Town Clerk to carry out the roll call of officers and councillors and ask you to confirm that you're present. So over to you, Peter Herbert, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. And this is also to help the audience to know who's at the meeting, Chair. Starting at the top and in alphabetical order, Councillor Baker. No. Councillor Blanchard Cooper. Who should be here. I wonder if his microphone's on.
Billy, can you unmute, please?
I will take it he's not here at the moment.
Sorry, apologies. I was having a technical problem there. Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Chase.
Present.
Councillor Long.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor North East.
Present. Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Rhodes. No. And Councillor Dr. Walsh, I can see you.
I'm here.
Just checking with my officers, if through you, Chair. Juliet Harris.
Present.
Emily Jordan.
Present.
Sophia Chittenden.
Present.
And Jay Thompson.
Present.
Thank you.
And I believe we've also got Denise Vine present as well.
And I thought you were going to introduce her later, Chair, but there we go.
I will, yeah.
I am here. So.
Okay, if we can then move on to the agenda proper. First of all, I've already asked members to switch their mobile devices off so it doesn't interfere, so please make sure you've done that. Secondly, have we got any apologies, Town Clerk, please?
We have none. We have none, Chair.
Thank you very much. I then move on to declarations of interest and ask if the members have any other declarations of interest other than the standing declarations. Somebody wishes to make a declaration. Billy Blanchard Cooper. Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
Thank you, James. Need to declare an interest as a member of Arran District Council, but more specifically as the Vice Chair of the Littlehampton Regeneration Group. Thank you.
Thank you. I've made that declaration as a member of both Arran District Council and the County Council. It involves both councils. Any other declarations of interest? No. In that case, we move on to the Chair's report and urgent items. And it's with very great sadness that I report the loss of 3 individuals who've served this council over many years. Rosemary Orpin, former mayor and town councillor, former town councillor, and more recently serving councillors Tony Squires and Chris Blanchard Cooper. The council will hear a proper tribute to them on Thursday at the annual meeting, but for now I would like to offer deepest condolences to their families on behalf of the committee and council. We now move on to item 4.2, which is urgent items. I don't think we've got any.
No, we haven't, Chair.
We then move on, thank you, to item 5, which is the public forum. Now, this doesn't take quite the same form under the remote meetings, and any members of the public wishing to address the council should have emailed their representations or questions to us one clear working day before the meeting. And there have been 4 questions, which I will take in turn. And the first is from Sarah Tyrrell, who asks, what measures will be put in place for the safety of pedestrians at the radically new junction, at the layout of the junction of East Street, High Street and Beach Road? In particular, what signage will be provided for the blind, partially sighted and other disabled pedestrians? Secondly, will there be reduced speed limits for road traffic at this junction? The current speed limit of 30 miles an hour is far too high. Then she asks, are the 2016 pictures for this proposal out of date? She then makes a statement, similar changes have already been made at the junction of London Road and the High Street in Bognor Regis, where the lack of difference in levels has been found to be quite disconcerting and dangerous for pedestrians. Well, thank you, Sarah, for that question. Personally, I'm very sympathetic to the request about controlling the speed of traffic, and I think we do need to have a 20 mile an hour speed limit, or even lower if it's possible. But I'll ask Denise Vine to pick this up during her presentation and bring us up to date where we are on the highways matters with this project. I'll also ask Denise to address the points about the use of the 2016 pictures and the use of street levels, pavement levels in the Bognor Regis scheme during her presentation. So that should address that part of the question. The second question is from Janet Crossley, who's a resident, who asks, why does the seating and other ironwork have to be changed? She says the new designs do not relate to seaside and heritage as proposed. She says they're expensive to maintain, wood costs more than metal, some appear to have problems cleaning underneath, and why single chairs? Well, I can answer that one, we're not using single chairs. And she then opines that they're boring. If they have to be replaced, use them elsewhere or sell them to us, the public, not to contractors to make a profit. Other ironwork, namely colourful planters and hanging baskets, are very popular with the public. They fulfil the brief of attracting more pollinators and beautifying the environment in a way tamarisk trees do not. I think this is an unnecessary waste of money, a vanity project. We do not have modern buildings to go with this vaguely modern design. A grant should not be wasted, that's immoral. As it's 4 years since the final proposal and longer since the public consultation, much has changed, mostly in the last 3 months, and please look at this again. In answer, I'd say it's important to note that the grant which has been secured for this project can't be spent on any other scheme. It's specifically for this project. And if it's not used, the grant will have to be returned to government and the other agencies. I would also add that the members group have asked officers to explore other options that better reflect the seaside heritage of the town that Mrs. Crossley refers to in her question, and I will ask Denise Vine to pick up on these points about the design during her presentation. Next, I have a question from Susan Penn on behalf of the Littlehampton Society, who asks, is it really necessary to change Littlehampton High Street paving? The paving design reflects the link with the town's maritime heritage and has specific foundations enabling vehicular access without causing damage. With quality repair and cleaning, the paving could be rejuvenated. This paving is very similar to that of the walkway along the East Bank, proceeding north from the Littlehampton Harbour Office to its termination, thereby linking the town centre to the river. The planned paving is unimaginative and bland, and if similar to Bognor, very difficult to keep clean. The Littlehampton Public Realm Final Report 2016 states, the existing street furniture intends to portray the town as having a unique coastal seafaring heritage of which the community is inherently proud. Total agreement from Susan Penn. Then, unfortunately, this off-the-shelf style can be found in many coastal towns and cities and doesn't offer a distinctive identity. Total disagreement. What will the cost of unnecessary and expensive new high-quality materials and furniture be? Please rethink the planned changes to our high street. In these unprecedented times, funds could be spent more wisely on a town centre community hub. Well, in answer, I have to say this is very similar to the previous question, and I reiterate my previous response that the members group have asked officers to explore other options that better do reflect the seaside heritage of the town, and to reiterate strongly that unfortunately the grant cannot be spent on a different project. It's specifically given only for this project that was in the bid. And again, I'll ask Denise to address the other points in her presentation. And finally, I have a question from another resident, Danny Surridge. And he says, regarding the recommendation to replace the town clock, I would suggest that it's not the clock, but the edifice on which it is sited that must be replaced. Too tall, too wide, and indeed an impediment to sight lines. The present town clock is the town clock of the town of Littlehampton, weather vane and all. There are town clocks of similar appearance in many towns, and in both modern and traditional settings, on a variety of designs of plinth, pillar, etc. One of the functions of consultants is to accommodate that which their client wishes to retain, and to do this in a manner which does not jar with the overall scheme. Did they not offer any designs for a new supporting structure? May I offer you then the following, which would satisfy the modernising brief. Retain the clock on its present site and set it on a single pillar-like support, sympathetic to the approved street design furniture, and then set option 4 tree seats around it. I think he means the wooden seats. I am of the belief that our town clock would fit perfectly well into such a modern scheme. So I'd like to thank Mr. Surridge for his suggestion, and I hope members will bear those ideas in mind when they come to consider the proposals later in the meeting, some of which do address his question, in other words, about the support for the clock and the improving the sight lines. And those will be addressed, the answers to that will come out in the discussion later. So the public forum is now finished, and I'd like to thank the public for these questions, which will be included as an appendix to the minutes of this meeting. This is a temporary arrangement, and we very much look forward to returning to public meetings and taking your questions face to face when the circumstances allow. So we now move on to item 6, the main business of the evening, and I'd like to, which is under officers' reports, item 6. I'd like to welcome Denise Vine, Arran District Council's Group Head of Economy, who will make the presentation setting out proposals for the improvements to the town centre public realm. This is a District Council scheme, Arran District Council, and the Town Council has been invited to input suggestions which, after they've been endorsed by Council on Thursday, we hope, will be presented to the District Council for them to take forward. A report and recommendations can be found on pages 3 to 5 of your papers, and members will then have the opportunity to raise questions once the presentation has finished. So I will now hand over to Denise Vine and ask her to begin her presentation. Over to you, Denise.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. What I'm going to do now is just open the document that I want to show you. So allow me a moment to do this. Hopefully I will master the technology. So let me see. So can everyone see this document now?
Yes, that's up, Denise.
Great. OK, so as explained, my name is Denise Vine, Group Head of Economy at Arran District Council. What I'm going to do is just really talk through the public realm improvements for the town centre at Littlehampton, the proposals for that. I'm going to sort of cover quite a bit of detail because I think it might be helpful for some people that I haven't spoken to before. So, I'll go through the slides quite quickly. There are quite a few, but mostly pictures and sort of visuals of the proposals. So the first slide I will show you. So the reason I put this slide up is because I felt it was really important to perhaps remind everyone of the journey we have travelled trying to get to this point, which has been quite a long time. The way it's represented here is by date, by year, and the first reference I could find regarding making improvements to the public realm was in the Littlehampton Vision Master Plan. Interestingly, that document really featured something that reoccurs in a lot of documents that talk about Littlehampton. It's about creating a really positive connection between the town centre, the seafront and the riverside, and particularly it's not unheard of for people to visit the seafront and not be aware that the town centre is so close, and vice versa. And these documents have often said, or frequently say, there is a real need to emphasise that. It also said in that 2004 document that there was a need to improve the quality of our public realm to make it as high quality as we can possibly manage. The next reference really is in 2014, and there was a document prepared called the 9 Big Ideas for Littlehampton. This document was born from a piece of work which was looking at wayfinding or signage around the town, again directing people from one place to another. And within that piece of work, they identified 9 key points that they felt required improvement and development. What we looked at those 9 ideas, and clearly we could not afford or to manage to deliver all of those in one go. So I went through a prioritization exercise, and that was discussed in 2015. So from those 9 ideas, we looked at those that could be delivered, most deliverable, and had the greatest impact. And the public realm projects came up top, well, certainly within the top 3 of those. So from that point on, we focused on bringing together a scheme to improve the public realm in the town centre. This was in tandem with some work that was taking place on the Riverside walkway and the improvements that were completed there. And the value of that was around £2 million at the time, because this tied in with the flood defences that were put on the Riverside. LDA Designs were appointed to do the Riverside walk, and based on their reputation and the good work that they've done, as well as in Littlehampton, but also in Bognor Regis, they've got an international reputation as well. They've done lots of work at the Olympic Park and different places. We appointed them to help us work up some designs for the town centre. Moving into 2016, full-scale public consultation on those proposals. It was over 3 weeks in the May of 2016, involving the public, traders, members were also involved, walkabout town. There was really good support from the survey results that the public would like to see some changes and improvements to the town centre. And based on that, some designs and proposals were put forward to our council, our district council, in July of that year. And the instruction from that was that the designs were accepted, the principles behind it, and it was really for officers now to go and find some money to deliver this. 2017, we move into the next phase of this project, and we bid for the first time for all 5 phases of that project. That was over £5 million, that bid, a large bid for the Coastal Communities Fund, and we weren't successful, unfortunately. We were really disappointed, so we approached them and said, well, really, why? What could we do better? Why didn't you give us the money? And they were really honest and frank, and they said there was nothing wrong with your project. It was a great project. It was just we'd run out of money. We didn't have enough money to offer you. So they said bid again when the opportunity comes about. So late 2018 and moving into 2019, we got the opportunity to bid again to Coastal Communities Fund. We took a decision then that because we had been told that the bid was too big last time, we thought if we scale this back, just do 1 and 2 phases, it's a smaller value and we'll increase our chances of getting the money. And it worked. We were awarded £2.49 million to do phase 1 and 2. Within that same year, we also got another opportunity to bid to another funding pot through the Local Growth Fund for phase 3 of the project. And we bid for that. It was £1.4 million, the scheme at that time. They didn't give us the whole amount. They gave us just under £600,000. What that did mean, however, is that we couldn't deliver phase 3 with that amount of money, no matter what amount of value engineering we did. So that's when we approached the town council and the district council for an additional contribution so that phase 3 could be completed. We're now at the point 2020 where we've appointed our contractors that will lead on the project management of the technical team, and that's Faithful and Gould, and that's the point that we're at the moment. I just wanted to go through that because I think it can be really complicated to people who aren't familiar with it. It's been a long journey. There has been lots of attempts and effort to get the designs forward, get the money in, and we're now at the point of delivery. So I feel that's a great success. Moving on to this slide, this is some of the work that LDA Designs did when they first visited the town centre and gave their views on what could change, what could be improved. In their view, the the existing furniture and some of the landscaping with it did dominate those spaces, did create clutter. And what it does do, it creates a very inflexible space. When we want to put on events and hold markets, they have to work around these fixed features that make it very hard to use it in a flexible way. It also reduces the connectivity around the precinct. Also, in their observation, there was an array of materials being used. They were inconsistent. They weren't of as good a quality as they feel they should have been, and some were hazardous. The flint stones are impossible to walk on. Some of the grating you just dropped off the curb. So all of these things were clearly there and are there at the moment and need to be improved upon. Also, in their view, the existing maritime theme is outdated. They understand that there's a real sense of they cherish, the identity is cherished, but it's overused and the message is lost and is not unique to Littlehampton. The exact same kind of street furniture is used in other places. And a further observation from them was that some of the traffic junctions were really dominated by the traffic. From the pedestrians' point of view, these were wide spaces that cars had the right of way over and were difficult to manage and cross. And here's another example where they're talking about the desired lines. The desired lines where people choose to walk, and I think the top left image is a clear example of that. People are guided to walk across the crossing but choose not to. They cross across the road without using the crossing. The flint cobbles as well means there's areas that people can't walk on. It's unused space and large junctions. So from their point of view, the thing that they need to do is to maintain or develop the connectivity between the town, the river and the sea. But they were very clear about recognising the architecture in the town and references to that, the need for better public realm. They wanted to embrace the new, the modern, but also clearly respect the old and the history of the town. They identified spaces that were underused, and these are just examples of other places where quiet spaces have been improved with public realm. And this was their example, sorry about that. This was their example of Clifton Road. As a space, it's really, it's just a route for traffic at this time, and it isn't used very effectively. But if with some paving and better use of street furniture and a sense that it is a space that the public can use, it can be used very differently for markets, for cafe culture. That was just one example. Also looking at the station and the sense of arrival, as you can see from the centre photograph, this is the view when you come out of the station. It's very difficult to know where the town centre is from this point. Do you go left? Do you go right? And you need better visual clues to tell you which direction to go into. They provided some examples of other places that had improved their public realm outside the town station. This is the one in Bognor that has been worked on recently, and other examples, this one is in Sheffield. This is obviously the current view as it is. And the issue here is the dominance of the traffic and also the speed of the traffic, and I think that's picked up in one of the questions. And if we move on to the next slide, you'll see the whole idea with this, and this does work in terms of traffic management by reducing those lanes to one, reducing the speed most definitely, which we can do through traffic regulation orders, and then creating a table on which the cars go onto, so they sense a difference when they go into this space. cars do slow down. It works in many other areas. So, and that's something we would wish to see happen here. So from their point of view, for the public realm, they wanted to create really a restrained and appropriate colour palette, but that wouldn't overshadow the distinctiveness and the and not compete with the local architecture. So this was the woods, the tones, the planting that they were suggesting, all had this in mind. Looking at the pavement and thinking about Littlehampton's identity and its linked with the coast and the river, they wanted something that was timeless and subtle in terms of those references. So using materials that had those subtle clues, such as the beach, the sand, the stones, the pebbles, maybe even some little bits of glass, obviously polished glass, but giving those references and making it different and interesting. Here's another example of the paving. The idea would be that it would be quite a varied sense of shading. It doesn't show out in this photograph, but there's some quite strong blues. So again, it's talking about the sea, the sand, pebbles, getting that feeling of being beside the coast and stitching that all together. There's going to be quite a number of trees in the new scheme, more than there is now, and there was talk in one of the questions about some of the planting and the hanging baskets, and we recognise that people do enjoy those, but if we are creative in our planting, we can bring some seasonal change to that space, and decisions on the planting hasn't been decided yet, so this is still sort of up for consideration. Tamarisk was mentioned as a possible tree, but I think getting some feedback from people, this isn't a popular choice, but again, no fixed decision has been made. In their mind, there are creative and subtle ways of referencing the industrial history and also the sense of identity of Littlehampton. For them, it's around the fishing, and so their example, and I think it's really creative, it's about using maybe fish scale patterns in either the paving or some of the grill work or some of the seating, also linking to the tradition of boat building and how the wood is used and just those references to that. And it creates a link to nature as well as being timeless. This slide is just an example of some of their other work, LDA, so where they've worked at Scarborough and Swindon, and this is what they've done at down at East Bank at the moment, and those step seats are hugely popular in the summer. You literally see dozens of people sitting there, eating their fish and chips, spending a bit of time there. I just wanted to show you this slide because it's part of the public art project that will be included in the scheme. Ghost signs are very popular, and people are encouraged to reintroduce these in certain locations. We've got a great range of independent shops in Littlehampton, and we'd really like to develop this as an option on some of the buildings to bring some character and again just reintroduce some of the history to that space. So this is the scheme of the area of the proposal. On the top left is the town station. That's the beginning of the phase 1, and then we move along through the high street, which is phase 2, and then when it joins the top of Beach Road, excuse me, that is what we call phase 3. The areas that are greyed out are phases 4 and 5, which we don't have money for at this time. However, the scheme is, it will work coordinated and work together. So should money become available, and we'll continue to look for that, we would like to extend to those areas. I've just picked out this particular part of the scheme, which is on Beach Road, and this image because it was picked up on one of the questions. So these images were introduced, you're right, in 2016. They are artist impression, and this is close to what they think it will look like. I do recognise that we absolutely need to have a full safety audit on the surfaces and how this would be you know, how safe it would be for people with sight impairments or disabilities in some ways. The way this works is this is the artist's impression. They've done what they call a safety audit, road safety audit, stage 1 at this point. So saying, in principle, this can work. However, as we move into more detailed stages of the design, then they look at it in more detail and will make all recommendations. But just to assure everyone, every regulation will be followed, and qualified professionals will come in and look at it and critique it and say, you need this or you can't do that. So in fact, the reason that with more level surfaces, it will be a lot easier for people to walk on if you're a wheelchair user, that kind of thing, or you know, sort of all of the safety measures will be introduced. I just wanted to show this slide because it's just reminding people of the funding, and that has come up in a few questions. We've got nearly £2.5 million from Coastal Communities Fund. They are very specific about how you spend your money. In fact, you cannot bid to them unless you have a fully developed and fully costed project. You can't go to them and say, oh, I've got an idea, I'd like to do X, Y, Z. They will turn you away. They say, no, we want to know it can be delivered, that you can actually, we know how much it's going to cost and what the issues will be. So there is no opportunity to return that money or to do that, use anything but use it on this scheme. Same with Coastal Communities Fund. They expect us to deliver on this project. They wanted to know the detail of the project and what the impact it will have on the local economy, and that is why they gave us that funding. Further contributions from the town and district councils, both of £200,000, which are very generous and means that we can carry on with phase 3 of the project. The way that we always look at this, though, it's about the investment. By putting that £200,000 in, you've got another £3 million of project. So it's that match that comes from it. So I do recognise how people must feel that they see money being spent on one thing when so many other things need that investment. But I do genuinely think this is a fantastic investment, and in fact, so needed at this time. I would say there has been little material change in Littlehampton over the last few years in terms of investment in the town centre infrastructure. You're right with COVID-19, big issues for the town, but those issues were actually happening before this. The retail sector is struggling. We know that businesses, particularly big chains, are closing, and we need to really invest in our town centre to make it the most attractive place for people to visit and other businesses to invest. So I would say, of all the things that happened, actually what has happened most recently means it's even more important to make this investment now. So moving on to the clock tower, as you know, this is in the ownership of the town council, and the original design ideas recommended the removal of the clock tower. And from the designer's point of view, they felt it was a bit overbearing in terms of its style and just the space that it took up, and interrupted the sight lines and some of the views of the architecture in the area. What we did went through an exercise of thinking about other locations for the existing structure, and those were discussed, but none really were thought to be favourable or good enough. What the designers did do for us is offer up this alternative design, and the reason they've chosen it the way it is to reflect the original lighthouse structure, but it also has the benefit of being able to be illuminated, and these three images show the daylight the twilight and the an evening view with the illuminated structure. The clock face will be retained. We're looking into the clock mechanism, and suggestions have been made about including the weather vane on the top of that. So, but the idea is that it would be located where the existing clock structure is, clock tower is, and this new structure would be introduced. Moving on to the seating, a number of seating options were considered, but these were the two that were considered the best of the bunch, and it's using a wood and steel finish, which fits in with some of the what was suggested by the designers. This first option is called Tree. They have standard seats and standard benches. We have said that we do need seats with backs because that's what people would prefer to see. We also need seats with arms and also studs along any benches or sort of unbacked seats, because we have to discourage really rough sleepers from using these spaces, and also skateboarders. So this single seats won't be used, as mentioned by Councillor Walsh. They wouldn't be appropriate in this place. But also with this particular scheme, we can have bespoke benches provided that sit around a tree or are curved. The other options that was considered and was favoured was this one called Natural Elements. Again, the single seats wouldn't be considered, but what the group suggested is that these end panels could be can they be changed to include a reference to Littlehampton in some way, and we've asked the designers to think that through. And also on this seat seat option, we've gone back to the designers just to ask them, because there was a request to really can it be sort of personalised or individualised to demonstrate sort of Littlehampton, can carvings or shapings be put into it? So we've put those questions to the company that produced them. So moving forward and the next steps, we have been held up by COVID and a few sorting out the contract with Faithful and Gould, but that's all resolved now, and we feel these are realistic project milestones going forward. We intend to tender for the contractor in June and hope to appoint a contractor in July. Our understanding from feedback from other projects is that regardless of COVID, businesses are very keen to respond to tenders, and they have had good responses to all the tenders they've sent out. So we're not expecting a problem to be there. We're moving to detailed design in September and November, and these are sort of REBA stages 3 and 4. Issues for us are anticipated risks are we get a contractor, we think that'd be fine, but it's how COVID would have affected businesses in the subcontractor chain and also our supply of materials. Those are the queries at the moment, so we will keep monitoring that. We expect to be on site in December 2020, and this is a realistic date rather than give an unrealistic one. It's a phased implementation. They won't be digging up the whole road or the whole precinct in one go. They just do parts of it, then complete that, then move on to the next part. So disruption to businesses will be kept to a minimum. And then we're looking for completion in late summer 2021. So that's me finished, and if I could go over to questions now, if that's okay.
Denise.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you there.
That's all right, Denise. Thank you very much for that presentation and for the very clear slides that were put up there. Somebody's got their mic live because I'm getting feedback. So if we can now open it to questions, and can I remind members that to have the chat window open, as this will enable you to indicate that you wish to speak. And the Vice Chairman, the Town Clerk, or the Assistant Town Clerk might prompt me if I'm missing anything that are on my screen. At all times, please ensure that you speak clearly and wait for the word live and the red line to appear around your screen. Otherwise, your first few words may get lost. Can you please address all questions to me as Chair, and I will respond asking officers to answer as required. Once the debate is finished, I or the Town Clerk will summarise the discussion, highlighting the main points which will be fed back to the District Council and before proceeding to the recommendations. So the first question I've got is from Councillor Mike Northeast, please. Councillor Mike Northeast.
Please turn your camera on.
Hello, Chairman. Yes, it's not a question. It's more of I want to comment on.
Can I just interrupt? Can we take any questions off the screen and actually allow the face of the member who's speaking, please, to be up?
Shall I take the slideshow down? Would that be helpful at this time?
Yes, please, Denise. Thank you. Thank you.
Is that clear now?
One of the other officers will get Mike on the screen.
Mike is on the screen.
Right, that's better. Great. Okay, Mike, do you want to fire away?
Okay. Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you, Chairman. As I said, it's not a question. I want to make some comments about tonight and fill in, I think, a bit of the history on the precinct and what's gone on there in the past.
Mike, I don't want you to spend too long on that because we are at this stage rather than fighting yesterday's battles, and I know there is a history to it, but I don't really want a very long history of how we got to where we are. We are where we are, and we're trying to move forward.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, okay. I'll do my best.
A potted version, fine.
Yeah. Okay, Chairman. I'm finding the report quite saddening, actually. I think taking a phrase from something you use quite a lot, Chairman, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's exactly what this seems to be doing. We're throwing money at a problem on the wrong, and we're trying to fix it on the wrong things and in the wrong areas, and it'll do nothing to increase the vibrancy and footfall of the town. What it should be all about is it should be looking at how we're going to attract people into the town. Just doing a bit of tarting up again will not solve that. It's a bit like having a massive hole in your roof at home, and the first thing you do is replace the carpets. It's, you know, you've got to attack the problem that we have in the town centre, and that is definitely to get better shops in there and to attract shops. And this is not going to achieve that, because if it was going to achieve that, what we did in 2000 was very similar in terms of doing the paving, the public round work and all that, and that did not bring the shops into the town. We've been fighting that battle since the year 2000, and this is not going to solve that problem. Chairman, if I can just, and I think this is relevant, if I can just fill in a little bit of the heritage side of the clock and why we've ended up with what we've got. It's just a little bit of background, and that was it was first of all gifted to the town by a local boat builder, Eric Ward, who retrieved it from a bombed out church in Portsmouth. It then lay dormant for over 50 years in the cellars of the town council, and it wasn't until I picked it up as a project and got all the funding raised to build the structure that we've got and to get the clock to work. Now, the reason it was left dormant for 50 years is because of the nature of the mechanism of the clock. The clock, if anybody's looked at it, and by this report it doesn't look as though it has, the clock has a 4-foot pendulum in it, and also there are weights that hang right down to the floor, which is the winding mechanism and the clock. And those weights are quite sensitive and need balancing all the time to keep the clock on the right time. So the structure that's before us tonight will not house that clock. It will have to be, if it's changed, a totally new clock. Now that's doing away with a bit of the heritage, because the whole idea was to have the clock that was gifted to the town put in a prominent position. And when I say prominent position, the position was, there was a lot of care taken that it was put in a position where it could be viewed from lots of different focal points in the town, and it can be. And one of those reasons it was put there that helped us to guide us there was the fact that during World War II there were fire watchers in that area, and they were in that area because they had good sight lines through a lot of roads, down through the high street, up to the railway station, down Surrey Street. That's the reason it's there. And the other reason was there was talk at the time about the development in the car park out the back of Sainsbury's and Peacock's. Now, if that went ahead, the clock would be there in a good position so that the last face that faces Peacock's will be able to be seen in that area. So there was a lot of care taken on the positioning of that clock. It wasn't just plonked there. It was put in a position where it could be viewed by a lot of people in the town. The design of it also fitted in with the maritime theme that we were trying to achieve in the precinct. And the reason we were trying to achieve that was because we were trying to achieve the triangle. And the triangle was the town centre, the river, and the seafront. Now, if you do away with the maritime theme in the town centre, you've broken that triangle. And this new plan is going to break that up. It's going to do away with that heritage, and we shouldn't be ashamed of that heritage. We're a seaside town that strives through having a port here. What we wanted to do was to make sure they were all linked together. Now, by replacing it with paving and with seating, that is, you know, I heard it said that the seating that we got there and the public round that we got there at the moment is common to a lot of towns. I have to say, what we're being offered tonight is in more towns than the nautical theme stuff that we got at the moment. I mean, only this last weekend there were 2 town centres on the TV that had the same seating through it. It's nothing new. This is not bespoke. It is not just for us. This is all over the country, and it doesn't make us stand out from anybody else. With regard to the clock, the actual design of the clock, that wasn't just something that was plucked off the shelf. It was designed on the pepper pot lighthouses that were down on the pier, and it was thought to bring that side of our history and heritage into the town centre, to link us with the lighthouse that there is down there at the moment. And that's the idea of the structure, and that's why people love it so much. It's iconic, it's unique, and it houses that clock, which has a lot of heritage and a lot of links to this town. The cobbles that are down there as well. They weren't just thrown down there. They were put down there for a reason. And the reason was the paving that we had there before was broken up all the time because of vehicles driving on it. We need to have vehicles to be able to drive over that precinct all the time. Those cobbles are very robust. They will not get broken up. As you can see, it's hardly moved in the 20 years it's been down. What it does need is a thorough cleaning, a jet washing, and it needs a jet washing with a sand jet washing to actually bring the colour back. Because if anybody's noticed down there, the design are waves coming onto the shore. And that was another part of the overall nautical design of the precinct. Chairman, these new proposals do not they do not enhance the heritage of our town. They do nothing to sort of make it more vibrant. All it's going to do is spend a lot of money replacing stuff that we don't need to replace. There are, as it's been pointed out, there are other phases of this that we can't afford. Perhaps we should look at those and try and bring them into the town centre now, instead of leaving them undone again. Let's look at them now and do that. If we've got to spend that money on public realm stuff, the works of the station, Beach Road, East Street and Clifton Road are all good ideas and I support them. But let's make it, let's bring it in to what we've got, link it to what we've got. These new designs do not do that. The paving as well. If you're going to make a start in there in December, most of the traders have had one hell of a time at the moment. They will be looking towards December to make their money. If you start ripping up that precinct in December and doing other works there, it's going to kill them off even more. You cannot do that. And all this about, yeah, it's going to be done in bits and pieces and phases. Yes, that's how it was done before. But the amount of disruption that it causes is unbelievable. And if you ask the traders if they want to be put through that again, straight after what they're going through now, then you're gonna absolutely kill them off stone dead. So, Chairman, I'm not happy with these proposals. I'd like it to be looked at again. There are, as I say, there are other areas that this money could be spent on to bring it into the overall theme of the precinct, because yet again they will be left out and left on the peripheries and not included. We need to have a united town centre all over, so that all the sections are brought together. We have an opportunity here with this money. Let's get on and do that, and not try and fix something that doesn't need fixing. I'll finish there for the moment, Chairman.
Thanks very much. Sorry, I better wait for my mic to come on. Thanks very much, Mike, for that. I don't think there were many questions in there. In fact, I don't think it was a question. I think it was all statements. I'm not going to ask Denise unless she wishes to comment on all of that at the present time. I've got Billy Blanchard Cooper, who's going to be next, but I just do need to say that this isn't money that we can do anything that we wish to with, Mike. It's a lot of money, and if we don't get it, it will go somewhere else and it won't be spent in Littlehampton, and that would be a tragedy, because the high street and the town centre is broke and it does need fixing. Now, it doesn't mean just trying to attract more retail. It also, in turn, in my view, needs to have more outdoor cafe society, restaurants, eating and drinking places, and to try and build a nighttime economy there as well. And I think the idea of the scheme that we've got before us is to revitalise and link it through to the highly praised and prized Riverside Walk. And I don't think you can say that the approach from the railway station through Terminus Road, Beach Road is a mess. Clifton Road, Duke Street and East Street are not linked in any way to the High Street. And I think this is actually an attempt to try and unify and have a really revitalised and a revamped scheme to lift the whole of the town centre. But I'll comment again later, but I'll bring in Billy Blanchard-Cooper at this stage, if I may. Councillor Blanchard-Cooper? Billy Blanchard-Cooper.
Thank you, James. So I'm very torn with this in many different respects, but I see it very much as though I was redoing my garden. Okay, so someone came along and said, here's some money to redo my driveway or my patio. I would say, thank you very much, lovely jubbly. And I wouldn't be wanting to throw that away. So with that, yes, I'm in favour of us doing improvements to the town. Yes, I can see the benefit of much of it. There's bits I'm not a fan of. There's bits that I think could be done very differently. I am very concerned still, and I have voiced this before, about the different crossings. I've seen this type of crossing used in various towns, one of which being Southampton. And as you get off the train there, it's frankly, it is a bit of a nightmare. And speaking to one of the cafe owners there, well, actually, it's a chain cafe, but anyway, speaking to one of them there, they said that the amount of accidents they have witnessed and near accidents they have witnessed is ridiculous. It's a sort of daily, weekly occurrence. So I do have real concern with that. As I say, I've got various concerns with it. I do have questions as well, one of which Mike's touched on, which is beginning on site in December. In the retail trade, December is classed as the golden quarter. It is when, so December through to, it's approximately 3 weeks into January, is when businesses will either live or die. Now, with this year, with COVID, businesses are under even more extreme circumstances, and they will be needing that quarter more than ever. I appreciate that it is said that it will be done in sections. However, when I was 17, 20 years ago, I worked in Summerfields, and we had a meeting whereby we was told about all of what the plans were in the high street, and I can remember very clearly at the time that it was said it would be done in phases. It was not. It was a complete mess, and it caused nothing but problems, even resulting in the shop having to close one day because of the amount of dust and dirt that was coming in, because too much of the town centre was being done at once. So I would like it considered to actually try and move the start date back, if nothing else, because the traders will need that, but also because actually as a town, the people need that at the moment. We are all in lockdown. One of the few events that, with my chair community resources hat on, that to date has not had to be cancelled is the Christmas light switch on. Now, we don't know where we'll be in December. Will we be able to have an event? I don't know. But at this moment, we have to hope that we would be able to come December. And if the town lost that last event for the year, which might be the only event we're able to actually put on and be able to really go to town on, I think that would be such a shame for this town. So I would very much like it considered to try and move this back. My main points are actually on the town clock. So I'll crack on with these. There's not many, but there's a few points. So in 3.3 of the report, it states, the town clock was identified by the consultants as not in keeping with the proposed modern public realm. This should have been part of their briefing to keep this. It's not furniture, it is a structure. There is a difference. So frankly, I do not feel the job has been done properly from the start in relation to this. Would you get rid of the Dolphin, the Old Nat West or the Manor House? No, you would work with it, not against it, which is what has been done. When does something become town history? So such as the Dolphin public house. When does something become history? Well, I'd actually say that the millennium was quite a big thing, not just in our town, but in the entire country, the world. The millennium was a huge celebration. The Littlehampton clock was actually part of Littlehampton 2000, the celebrations of that. So to actually remove that is yet again another little part of our history that has been wiped off the face. So, and regardless of it being rebuilt or redesigned, that clock is then gone. The report says it might not survive being dismantled. Then don't dismantle it. Keep it in the place where it is and work around it the same as we would with any other building in the town. Or are we removing all the shop windows in case the builders aren't capable of working around those and are going to smash through those? I'm sorry, but any builder or anyone doing the work would be able to work around this. The actual clock, keep it. It's a lovely iconic part of the town. It could be enhanced. Increase the look of it by having flower beds around the bottom to actually increase the look of it. Have uplighters in it. We want more lighting, put uplighters into those beds to reflect it upwise. Before I go on, I just want to check for you, Chair, if we're having a separate discussion on the new design of the proposed clock.
No, it's all part of the discussion. It's all one item. We can discuss it now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So my reflections on the new design. Unattractive. Easily reversed into by vans. If they're reversing, they will have a blind spot. All they're gonna, if they're reversing, there's basically going to be 4 legs that they will easily go into. Let's face it, the capstan is a prime example of what happens. How many times have we had to have that put back where it belongs? It's been knocked over time and time again. Looking at the design on there, if you actually look at that design, if people wanted to, it's very easy to climb up. Okay, really great idea. Let's put it there. We have this problem already with the stage by the sea, people climbing on that and jumping off of it. We're basically having a design in front of us where I could actually do it where I piggyback on someone else, grab hold of the bottom, what's it called, the bottom slats, climb up the rest of it. I could climb up that easily. Maybe not me, I've got a bit too much weight to carry up, but others certainly could. For me, it looks like an overgrown smoking shelter right outside of a pub. Lovely place to have it. It's also going to end up as a great place to tie up dogs and bikes to. For 4 years, we had a bike that was being chained up to one of our lampposts or the hanging basket posts outside of the former Worthing Churches Homeless Project charity shop. That bike, because I contacted West Sussex, there was nothing that could ever be done to remove it because it was a highway. We are now creating a really large area, if this went through, a really large area to tie dogs up to tie bikes up to, which could then just stay there and frankly would just look a complete mess. Appendix 1 also states single stilt option should be considered. So if we're then going for this and stating that Appendix 1 states that, would it then be that we don't even end up with what's on the page, but actually a single stilt option, which would look completely different and once again lose all that heritage? I'd also like to know if we have any estimated costs on doing this. The Town Council gave £200,000 towards this scheme. £200,000. In a search earlier today online, the cheapest I could find for a new clock, because we're not realistically looking at keeping anything from this clock, the existing one, because the mechanism cannot be reused because of the points that Councillor North East has already made. So we would have to invest in a new clock and a new structure. For that, the cheapest I could find online earlier was approximately £20,000 for a new clock, four-faced clock mechanism of a similar type and standard with a bespoke building around it. That's 10% of the money that Town Council gave. Why? That's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor.
Chair, could I interrupt for a moment? Sorry
Yes.
to do this. We've got a technical problem. Could we adjourn the meeting for a minute, please?
Yes, I'll adjourn the meeting while the technical problem is solved. Thank you. So we'll stand adjourned until I call the meeting to order again.
Sophia, are you there?
I am. Do you want to call me?
I was on the phone, sorry. How did you do that? My microphone's off, isn't it?
No, your microphone wasn't off, Peter. I was hearing you.
So, councillors, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry, bear with me again, James. Sophia.
Can I ask somebody, are we still live on the internet, or are we off air at the moment?
Just to explain, Chair, the meeting is still on live at the moment. We are allowed by virtue of the remote meetings protocol to adjourn for a brief period to establish what the problem is before coming back to the meeting.
Right, I'm sort of up to
Okay.
speed now, Chair, and I think I'm going to set out the situation. We have a very limited amount of people watching this, and the reason is that it would appear that they'd had to have taken a download. So some people had got it, the download of Teams, but others hadn't. So they've been struggling and not being able to watch it. So we've been happily chatting to some people, but not to others who would like to watch it. I am of the view, unless you're going to say something otherwise to me, Chair, that I would strongly advise you that you stop the meeting here and now and that we reconvene.
I'm having to think. I wasn't expecting that. I think that's very difficult to do. Are we not archiving this, and it will be ready for viewing afterwards?
Yes, it is being. Is Sophia on?
I am on.
Yeah.
It is being archived, but it might be that the issue will be the same again, that unless somebody has downloaded the Microsoft Teams app, they won't be able to access this link.
They could.
So
They could download the app and watch it at a later date. You're correct there, Chair.
Well, in my view, then we should proceed with the meeting because we've got a properly constituted meeting. The fact that very few members of the public have actually joined this isn't unusual. That's normally in the council chamber when we only have 2 or 3 or 4 members of the public there, and it doesn't stop us going ahead with the meeting. I think
I've just thought of something which makes your logic. I think you need to take a vote of the committee as to whether you go ahead or not.
I was getting to that.
But there is one other factor, is that you're not making a decision tonight. You're only making a recommendation.
Indeed.
What you said earlier, though, is not quite spot on. We're not taking it to Thursday's meeting. We'll be taking it to an extraordinary meeting of council. So it will be a one-off council meeting, which will take the recommendations from here. So you could,
Yes, of course.
so if you follow my logic, we could carry on, make the recommendations to council and still make sure that we've got the full debate in front of the public next time round.
Well, the other part of turn myself off. The other part of the logic is that this full debate that we make, from which we make a recommendation, is available to the public to watch as many times as they want to and at their leisure. They don't have to watch it now. And in fact, the history at the County Council and elsewhere is that far more people watch it as an archive recording than actually the live broadcast, and I'm sure that will happen here. So my view is, before I put it to the committee, is that we've had the presentation and we're halfway through a member discussion. We should proceed with that and come up with the recommendation at the end and let the public view that as an archive recording, and then take the recommendations, and hopefully the next full special meeting of the council will be without the technical glitches. So could I suggest to the committee that we do continue with the discussion and make a recommendation? Otherwise, a lot of this evening is wasted time because we won't all recall it at the reconvene meeting. We'll have to start all over again. Is that view acceptable to the committee?
Could you do it alphabetically? Just go round them each, James. Starting with Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
So, Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Councillor Chase.
Yes. Sorry, James.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Yes, I'd be happy with that.
Thank you. Councillor North East.
Yep.
And myself, obviously, yes, as I propose it. So I think we've got a steer there, Peter, that will
That's
continue.
fine. Sorry,
Okay.
can I just ask one thing through you, Chair? Sorry, before you go back full screen, Sophia, do you think you could notify urgently to the people who might be trying to watch this through some kind of notice on our webpage or Facebook or whatever, that outcome, that we know there's a problem, but because there are no decisions being made tonight, there are only recommendations. They will go to council, and the and this meeting will be available to view on our website as of tomorrow, hopefully.
Yeah, no problem, Peter.
Okay, sorry, James.
No, not at all. That's very helpful, and all that was very helpful. And it's amazing how quickly we have to learn to cope with new technology, move with the times, and think on our feet to make sure that something still keeps going. Right, now we've got Billy, you'd finished, I think, hadn't you? Just yet. So I haven't got anybody else wanting to speak at the moment. So perhaps if I could just come in again. I'm much taken with Billy's suggestion. I too balked at the suggestion that we should start the any works in December. I think that would be totally unacceptable, not just to the shopkeepers, the retailers, but also to the townspeople of Littlehampton. And I would propose that we actually move it, if it can still be achieved, just by a month, to start in January, which is always a pretty dead month in Littlehampton and indeed in a lot of town centres. So I would suggest that we actually look to starting in January. I'd also say that if we don't proceed, if we hold this up in any way, there's a real danger that like Worthing and Chichester lost their bypasses because they couldn't make up their minds on schemes, and the money went elsewhere, and we could end up with the same situation here with nothing being done. My views on the clock have changed quite a lot. I've toed and froed on it, but I think there's a strong case emerging for actually keeping the current clock and not trying to dismantle it, but to leave it in situ and surround it with a tough hoarding while the works proceed, to make sure that it's preserved. It is a unique feature. There isn't another one like it. It's unique to Littlehampton. It reflects the heritage, and I listened very carefully to what Mike Northeast said about it, and to what Billy Blanchard Cooper said about floodlighting it. Whether or not there's a flower bed, another matter, but you could certainly uplight it and or downlight it and or spotlight it. All those things could be achieved as well, which would help that. I'm not summing up at the moment. I can see that Councillor Mike Northeast wants to come back in, so I'll ask Councillor Northeast to come in. Councillor Northeast.
Yeah, I just have to turn everything. I have to turn everything.
Sure.
That's the problem. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I support what Billy's said, and I'm pleased to hear what you said, Chairman, about leaving the clock. I think it should be left there. You're absolutely right. It is an iconic. It's part of our history. It's part of our heritage, and the clock should stay in situ. We should protect it. But in saying that, we're still looking to spend money on public realm stuff. There's money that needs to be spent on the clock. The actual structure itself, I think, needs to be reinforced in some way. So and also the clock is always taking money. So that needs to be maintained properly. And as I said, a bit of TLC put on it. If I can just go back to the other structure that we got in front of us, I just thought that when I saw it, I thought, well, perhaps I'm being an old person and looking at it in the wrong light. So I showed it to my son, who really has no sort of ties to it whatsoever. I just said to him, "What do you think?" And the first thing he said to me was, and what Billy brought up, was the fact that it would get destroyed, it would get abused. He said, when you get a gang of people come out of Wetherspoons, you know, they'd be climbing in the middle of it, they get onto those slats and they destroy it. That's it. That's what makes it look so vulnerable and so flimsy. The old structure has never had a lot of vandalism done to it in 20 odd years, not even graffiti on it. It's respected and it's well loved in the town, and that's and I think you're absolutely right. I think we should stick with it. There are plenty of things, as I've already said, that can be done with the money within the public realm, and that is to bring in phases 4 and 5. Don't leave them on the outside again. Bring them in and do them. All the work that needs doing north of the High Street to the station, Beach Road and East Street and Clifton Road, that's all money that needs to be spent, and that's going to take a massive chunk of that money. So let's do that. Just one other thing that Denise said about planting trees in the precinct. Now, we've had problems with trees in the past. We've had trees in the precinct, but it's very difficult to put trees there because it affects the CCTV. And we've had to take most of the trees out in the past because we couldn't see a lot of areas within the precinct because they were obliterated by the trees on the CCTV. So I don't think there's an opportunity there to put a lot of trees in the precinct because it will have that effect. So that's about it, Chairman. And I definitely support you in keeping the clock where it is and what it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I think, sorry, I've got Billy Blanchard-Cooper, Councillor Billy Blanchard-Cooper, who wishes to come in. So Billy Blanchard-Cooper, Councillor.
Thank you, James. Firstly, delighted to hear that you're changing your mind on the clock as well. And thank you, Mike, for your support on that. I forgot to mention one thing on my last thing was beside the clock, we're also looking at street furniture. So I'm just changing pages around. And it's something that occurred to me earlier. We're obviously, I believe I'm correct in saying Aaron is trying to have more green credentials as well. And there is a want within communities these days to upcycle, reuse, recreate. Could this actually be an opportunity for us to use the existing street furniture of the benches to reinvigorate them, send them away? I've just had this done with my own street furniture, my own garden furniture. I've had items sent away, sandblasted. This was a year ago, sandblasted and powder coated. Is there an option that could actually be looked at doing this with the benches, which have the Progress logo on, which is something that is very personal to our town, has the seaside effect, but to try and do it in a way that is sympathetic and works with the scheme that the designers are trying to put forward of actually changing the colour to subtle grey. It would still work with what they're suggesting, but actually still keep an element of the old and that seaside reference, but without it actually, as I've sort of tried to explain, that they're trying to have this one particular colour palette. It would still work with that. I'm just wondering if that's something that could be explored. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I think that's a question that I really need to put to Denise, because it's not an answer that a question that I would have an answer to. So can I ask Denise Vine to reply to that one?
Thank you. It's not been suggested before, it's not been considered before. We discussed, I think, 6 options of seating only last week, and that wasn't mentioned. The designers have put forward proposals that they feel is in keeping with both the new public realm scheme and what sits on the seafront. I really don't know if that can be done, if it's cost effective, or if the seats would then fit in with the new scheme. So I can ask the designer's opinion on that. That's probably the best thing I can do.
Okay, well that's helpful, Denise. Sorry, I wait for my mic to come back on. Wait for me to come live. Thank you, Denise. That's very helpful, and we'll get the answer to that from the design consultants, and hopefully have it for the next meeting, where the decisions will be made both here and. Sorry, I think my microphone was muted for some of that. I suddenly saw. Thank you, Denise, for that. We'll take that away, get the answers, and bring it back to the next meeting for the Littlehampton Town Council, and obviously for the meeting when it's held at Arran District Council as well. Right, I've now got Councillor excuse me, Councillor Jill Long, who wishes to contribute. Councillor Jill Long.
I'm just waiting. Can you hear me? I'm just
Yes.
waiting. Thank you. I've been listening to these discussions. I'm just beginning to wonder what heritage are we talking about? We're talking about a clock that came from Portsmouth. We're looking to change the street furniture, maybe have it grey so it blends in with the surface. People might bump into it. We have an opportunity to bring a more modern, a more vibrant image to the town, a better face to the town, but we don't want to change anything. I'm just not sure where we're going with this. I've sat through various meetings, 3 meetings over the last few months, you know, to help us get to this point, and I just feel we're backtracking on quite a lot. Maybe I'm missing something here. I certainly didn't appreciate the pendulum and the weights in the existing clock. I do feel that its current position kind of closes off the view down the high street, but that's just my views. Thank you.
Jill. Right, I'll come back again. Jill, thank you. Thank you very much for your view is as valid as anybody on this committee and indeed on the council. And I hear what you're saying. I think the main point of contention, as always has been right from the word go, has been the clock. And I think the point's been made, and it's one that's weighed quite heavily, and I have changed my mind. I've veered back and forth on it, but I think I've been persuaded by the arguments I've heard tonight from both Billy and Billy Blanchard Cooper and Mike Northeast about the unique heritage of the clock to Littlehampton. Not just the mechanism is a gift to Littlehampton, but it is of its type and of its period. But the design of the actual casing, the reflecting the old Pepperpot lighthouse that used to be on the end of the pier and one inland on the pier until World War II, when they were demolished because they were thought to be too valuable for sight by enemy ships, is a real link with the past and is a reflection of the maritime heritage of the town. And I'm not persuaded by the argument that it wouldn't stand up to being moved. I think that can be overcome by putting something around it and preserving it where it is. But I think we need to make progress. I don't think I've got anybody. Councillor David Chase wishes to come in. Councillor Chase, David.
Yeah, Chairman. Going back on what everyone said, with the clock, I could see all stuff.
Councillor Chase, please turn your camera on.
You need to press your Zoom look, your camera look. That's it.
Yeah. Totally see everyone's point of view on it and everything. But I'd just like to throw into the mix regarding the clock and the street furniture. My personal opinion is the street furniture, yes, it's got all the heritage in that, but I would like to, and also like this noted, obviously it's recorded, so it will be noted, that we could actually do something else with the street furniture at a later stage, but we must keep ownership of it, get something designed, a sculpture for down on the seafront, loads of different things at a later date. But also what we could do with the clock, if we are going towards the wooden furniture, wooden and stainless furniture, could we not get a design for the clock which is included in the whole scheme, where the clock facings and the body of the clock is just redone in the timber and the stainless effect, and then that matches along with the street furniture.
Thank you, David, for thank you, David, for those comments. Useful. I did wonder when we were discussing the reuse of the existing street furniture, which is mass produced. It's got nothing particularly apart from the progress on it to link it with Littlehampton. But I did wonder whether they could be recycled and used as benches around, for instance, Caffins Field or other public places around the town where there's a need for more benches, and thus keep them in the town with the progress logo on them and use them. I now see that Councillor North East wishes to come back in, and I think then we're going to move towards a conclusion of this. Mike North East.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I was just going to come back with some sort of proposal. I'm looking at the recommendations, and I was going to come up with that, but David Chase has maybe just chip in, and that is with regards to the clock structure and perhaps cladding it in timber. That was originally looked at when it was first put in, but it was the maintenance of that afterwards. That's why the structure was made out of fiberglass, so that it looked the part but didn't need any maintenance. And I think that's proved itself over the years. All we've had to do literally is just wash it off every year, rather than do any serious maintenance to it. With the other wooden seating, they will also require the maintenance. The seating that we put in, the black ship's wheel seating and all the other stuff, all it needed was the A-team to go around with a pot of black paint to make everything look spruced up for the new season. And that's what used to happen with looking after the precinct. They just used to go around at the beginning of the season, paint everything black again, and it looked good and fresh and brought back to life. So, Chairman, looking at the recommendations, if I could make.
Well, Mike, I was going to sum up and then make some recommendations. If you want to amend those when I've made them, I think that would be the right way around to do it.
Well, all I was going to do was chuck in an amendment for one, which was recommend to leave the original clock structure and mechanism in situ, and to carry out any routine maintenance. And you can't say TLC, I suppose, can you?
No, that form of words is similar to the words I was going to use anyway. So that's fine. Just for number one, and then also just on number 4, to include at the end to bring in phases 4 and 5, which would actually to do as much of that as we can with any money that's left over from savings made on the clock. Right.
That's all I was going to suggest,
Thanks
Chairman,
very much.
but you'll probably come up with the recommendations anyway.
Well, I was going to recommend. Yeah, I'll sum up and recommend. Denise, I don't think there's anything else that you need to say at the moment. But is there anything else you want to say at this stage?
No, that's absolutely fine.
Fine, thank you. Well, I think we've had a pretty thorough series of presentations over, well, Denise showed us at the beginning, over several years, in fact, and then not much happened for a while. And then this year we've had several stabs at various bits of it, and we've got another big presentation tonight. And this is the first stage in a multi-stage process that's going to go on now. We'll make a recommendation from here to the full council, which will then make its decision on behalf of Littlehampton Town Council. That's not the end of the matter, because the final decision will be made by Arran District Council after the Town Council has met and made a decision. So what I would like to recommend, having listened to the discussion and to the debate, that recommendation 1 is that we recommend that the current town clock be kept as part of the public realm works and protected in its current situation while the rest of the works proceed. Secondly, that we recommend to the council, this is recommendation 2, that the town council's preferred seating for consideration by the district council, and this really came out of the previous working group, is the option 2, the tree, the one that's called tree, the wooden and stainless steel, I think it is, which has more bespoke designs available to it with the curb benches and the tree seats, and generally I think reflects the, sorry, this is, don't forget, my rambling is not part of the recommendation. Recommendation is that we recommend option 2, the tree seating, to the district council. Recommendation 3 is that we would wish to see the existing street furniture retained and used in other sites in and around the town, such as Cappins Field, and I just cite that as one fairly obvious place, but there may be others. And finally, to recommend that if there are any monies left over, appear to be left over from this scheme, that they are put to enhancing the Surrey Street connection with the Riverside Walk. I would think that that was the most important part of the unfulfilled part of the project, to accomplish what we've set out at the beginning, to link the station, the High Street and Beach Road through to the seafront Riverside Walk, via the Riverside Walk. So if I could put those recommendations to the committee then, and
sorry, could I just slightly interrupt you, Chair, just to pick up two very small points?
Yeah.
One, I think there's another point that was picked up in the discussions, which was about moving the start date to the 7th of January.
Yes, you're right. I've got that written down. I forgot to say it.
And the other point I was going to make was that I think that I will need to write into the report to council about extending the scheme, that cannot, under the current budgetary arrangements, mean that the town council is going to contribute anything further, because there isn't any money in that capital programme to do that.
No. Well, that's why I left that phrasing sort of vaguer at the end there. So can I put those recommendations with the addition of the proposed start date be moved to January from December? Is there general assent for that, or am I going to have to take a name vote? Can I just?
No, I'm okay with that, Chair.
Yes, I'd be happy to delay it.
Is it? Sorry, I think through you, Chair. I think what the Chair was saying was, are members broadly happy? Oh, sorry, are members happy with all 4 of those recommendations to go forward to council?
Yep.
I think Councillor Blanchard Cooper, Chair, wishes to make a point regarding taking the recommendations separately.
Okay. I can't. Oh, right. Yes, I see it's written here. Can we take each point separately? Well, I'm willing to do that. Yes. So okay. So shall we go through them one at a time then? So the first recommendation is that current town clock be retained and shielded from the contracting works in an appropriate way. I don't think it's for us to stipulate hoardings or whatever, but the current town clock be retained in situ and protected during the contractor's works. So can we see who's, is that approved on general assent, or do we need to have a named vote?
Yes, I'm happy with that.
I'm happy with that.
David?
Yeah, happy with that.
Bill?
I'm not entirely comfortable with it, but if that's the general feeling, then fair enough.
Okay, thank you. So that one is approved. Second recommendation is to indicate to the Arran District Council that our preferred option for the seating is the option 2, the tree, which is the timber and metal one, with the curved benches and the round tree seats.
Yep.
Yes, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Billy?
Question from Billy was there, I think.
All I was going to say is I'd actually prefer option 2, but I'm happy to go with the flow on this one.
Thank you very much. So that one's agreed. Thirdly, to suggest to the district, no, we don't have to, because we own it, to request that or agree that the current street furniture should be, as far as possible, reused at other public sites in and around the town, such as Caffins Field. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Can we just note through you, Chair, that Caffins Field is now in District Council land, so
Well, that's why I
need their
put
approval.
that's why I put such as. Yeah. Sorry, David said yes. Anybody else?
Yes, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I'm happy with
Agreed.
that.
That's agreed then. And then fourthly, to recommend that the start date for the scheme should be January 2021 rather than December 2020. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Yes,
Agreed.
agreed.
I think we'd all agree that one beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we then have a set of recommendations there, and those will go to the
Chairman,
Sorry, we've missed one, haven't we?
Yes, indeed. Recommendation 4, as was chair. And that was where it was proposed that any savings that are achieved through the clock are used to continue the enhancements in the River Walkway and Surrey Street.
In Surrey Street towards the River Walkway.
Chair, I know Councillor North is going to speak, but could I just put a question of proportionality in there? One is a clock cost and one is that the highway public realm works. I mean, without being glib, the clock saving will not get very far down Surrey Street.
No,
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't hang too much hope on that as a direct cost issue.
Okay, but there may be some opportunities. I mean, nobody's stipulating that the scheme should be completed. It's just that any residual funding should be applied to improvements in Surrey Street. How's that as a form of wording?
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Sorry, Councillor North East has still got a question out there, Chair.
Oh right, sorry, I missed that one. Councillor North East.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't see anything in the recommendations with regard to the paving. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I would like to propose that paving is left there, what we've got at the moment, but it is cleaned professionally to bring it up to the standard that it was when it was first put down, and any new paving that's installed there fits in with that rather than being something diversely different.
I have to say I would vigorously oppose that, because this is the nub of the whole scheme in making it a uniform improvement all the way from the railway station right through the High Street, Clifton Road, Duke Street, East Street and Beach Road down to the roundabout there. And without that, we are still going to have a mishmash of different surfaces, different appearances, crappy parts to it, and it will not enhance the town centre and would in fact destroy the whole purpose of this scheme, in my view. So I would vigorously oppose that and ask that the committee does support the basis of the proposals that are before us tonight.
Chairman, I think you need that then as a recommendation. It's not part of the recommendations. You've got the furniture, you've got the clock, but you have not mentioned the paving at all in the recommendation, and I think you need to.
Okay, you're quite right. It doesn't refer to that.
It doesn't refer to that, Chair, for a very good reason, in so much as the general pickup of comments is about the scheme, but the bits that we had some control over and were the ones that were specifically picked out in terms of the recommendation. Any other comments, certainly the comment that Councillor North East makes, could certainly be fed back to Arran District Council, but that is Arran District Council scheme. So
yeah, okay.
we could comment on it, whereas on these ones we might have some sway.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Can I suggest that, having just said what I've said, that we therefore put in a further recommendation that the council, this committee recommends to Littlehampton Council, Town Council, that it broadly supports the street treatment as proposed by the consultants. And if Councillor North East wants to vote against that, then obviously that's the way of dealing with that.
Yes, if I can have it recorded that I'm voting against that, please, Chairman.
No problem with that.
I think
So
you need to, in that case, if you're doing a recorded vote, you will need to go through each member, through you, Chair.
Okay, so on that final recommendation, can I ask for a recorded vote and go, just find my little list. Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
Sorry, just unmuting. Yep. For as much as I'd like to support Mike in that, in many respects, because we would lose the money for the actual improvements, I would say I'm in favour of the recommendation for the improvements.
Thank you very much, Councillor Billy Blanchard Cooper. Councillor David Chase.
I'm in favour.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Yes, I'm in favour.
Councillor North East, I think you've indicated you're going to vote against. And
Yeah, I certainly am. I'm not going to be. I'm not going to put my name to ripping up all that paving.
okay, thank you. And myself, I'll vote for. There we have a completed recommendation, I think. Are you happy with that, Peter, then?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got that.
Okay.
So, can I just add one thing, Chair, just to before you sum up? And I can't remember what's in your summation, but I just want to be sort of make sure members, because there's a slight confusion. There will be in fact there'll be 2 extraordinary council meetings in the next 6 weeks. The first of them will probably be hopefully in about a fortnight's time to take on board these recommendations, and there will be a later one about Keystone as well in the next 6 weeks. But we just thought that having had an absence of meetings, it was vitally important, councillors, that you've got some in really quickly and lots of them.
Right, thank you very much indeed. It's the town council coming out a little bit of enforced purdah during the lockdown, and suddenly things start to happen with increasing rapidity and urgency. But can I thank everybody for taking part in a very thorough, constructive and good-natured debate this evening, and I hope we've reflected, which we clearly have done, quite a few different concerns about the scheme around the town, in the town and in the council. But we've come up, thanks to your perspicacity and good debate, a set of recommendations that we can confidently give to the town council, and from there hopefully to the Arran District Council. It's, I think, important that we do actually see this scheme that we've got almost to the point of delivery through, and that we no doubt will contribute through it to the increasing the vitality, as I said earlier, of Littlehampton Town Centre, not necessarily as a looking backwards to revitalising completely the retail sector, which has clearly suffered a lot during the epidemic and will continue to do so, but to continue to support those businesses that will remain and continue to thrive in the town centre, but also hopefully to bring in more of the new types of businesses that we're going to get and see more, attract more people into the town centre with a restaurant, cafe, culture and leisure offer in the town centre. And I think what we're seeing here tonight is the first steps in that direction, and I hope we'll see that come to fruition next year, which I hope will be a more placid year than this year's turning out to be. So I think we've got to the end of the business tonight, and there is no exempt business. So I'll close the meeting at, wow, nearly 28 minutes past 8. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Chair. Before everyone switches off, can I apologise for the glitch, the technical problems that we've got. If you get any flack at all as councillors about secrecy or anything like that, can you direct it to me? Where it is my problem. It's not your problem. All I can say is A, I'm sorry, but B, that if it had to happen at a meeting, the one that's going to make recommendations only to another meeting is probably the one that's best, and it didn't happen at annual council. So that's a glass half full look at it, but I am sorry, and we'll sort it out.
I wouldn't lose too much.
Sorry, Peter, can I just say that you do, I heard you say something to Sophia earlier on, but this is splashed across social media because that's where the comments will come out rather than, I think, to us as councillors.
Yep.
Mike, I think that's a very valid point. I was going to make the same point, that we actually need to get that out onto social media, that it was a technical hitch, not a secrecy hitch, and that the whole debate is available, will be available to view on the website tomorrow. And we haven't tried to keep anything secret. It will all be there. And it's a recommendation, as I say, to the extraordinary meeting of the full council. But I think the thing to stress is that it will all be there, even if it wasn't viewable in its totality live.
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Blanchard Cooper has indicated he wishes to speak.
Well, thank you. I wasn't looking at that screen again. Councillor Blanchard Cooper, Billy.
Thank you. Yes, I would say it's unfortunate that we lost opportunities for some people to watch us live tonight. I truly believe in the public of this town, and I do think that the public will understand this is a first for the town council. It is a first for a lot of, well, it will be a first for many councils. I would personally, and I'm sure everyone will echo this, I'd like to thank all of the team at the town council for the work they have been doing, not just to actually make this possible tonight, but for trying to actually get us live. Okay, that hasn't quite worked as we wanted, but they have tried like mad. It is it's a huge learning curve. There is a lot that has to be considered with these things, trying different systems, and there are going to be mistakes. There are going to be things that go wrong. Councillors are going to slip up and do things on the computer, which perhaps they probably shouldn't have done. Press the wrong button. We are all human, and I know in my heart that the public in this town will know, accept, and respect that. So, but as I say, for myself, and I'm sure on behalf of all the councillors, I would like to thank the entire team, not just for tonight for setting up Zoom, but for everything they have done since the start of this pandemic in trying to keep as much going as possible for the town council. Thank you.
Billy.
Thank you, Billy. I'll pass that on.
Yeah, Billy, Billy, you've spoken on behalf of all the committee. I'd like to echo that, but you've said it much more eloquently than I would have done at this stage of the evening. So thank you for that. And with that, can I bid you all a good evening? Enjoy your suppers if you haven't had them. And we'll see. We're meeting all again on Thursday evening.
We are.
Well, hopefully the technology will work.
I do hope so.
What's happening Thursday, James?
What's happening Thursday? I think you need to get a bit of sleep before then, David.
Oh. Okay.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Cheers all. If just want to stay on for a minute.
And I'd like to echo thanks to the team as well, Peter.
Thanks, Jill. I'll pass those on from the committee.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night, all.